you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Having a good day. How about you?
Oh, I'm very good. I'm just checking in with you with the event we've got coming up on the 27th of February at the Ellison Hotel in Castlebar. You looking forward to it?
Very much, yeah. And listen, I'm delighted that you've invited me. Thank you.
I'm honoured to have you, Bill, with your expertise. Now, obviously, I know what you do. Yes, for some of the people listening, they might know what NLP is. So could you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you've done and how long you've been involved in it?
All right. Well, I'm Bill Phillips. I have a company called Phillips Partnership Limited, and I'm a coach, a consultant, a trainer. Neuro-linguistic programming (NLP) is, if you like, a very big part of the toolkit that I use. And NLP really is about how people do stuff and do it extremely well. It's like a study of human functioning. And so I train people in NLP. I use NLP in the coaching work that I do. It enables you to do whatever you want to do and find really good ways to do it. So in the old days, they used to talk about it as a kind of magic, really. Helps you work miracles. And so that's largely what I do.
Now, what I'm right in saying, I know you're being very humble, Bill, yeah? What I know about you, sir, you've been in this industry probably near enough since it started, and from what I know from being in the industry, you are like one of the top in the world at what you do. And you've been how many years doing it now?
About 32. It was 1988 when I had my first proper training in NLP and really started to get it, and I've been applying it to everything I do since.
See, people I know that talk about you with NLP would say that they would like to know what you forgot. Now, with all your background and obviously just for the listener, you've trained obviously in many different parts of the world, even in different languages, and you've worked with corporate teams, and you've developed over those years what I think is very unique. And when you read many of the books or on the market, that you developed a process that really cuts to the chase and gets all the drama that is in people's heads out of their heads and enable them to get a very clear, precise vision where they can check in on themselves regularly, where they know where they should be and what they should be doing. Could you explain what it is and what it's called and how a bit of summary of how it works?
Sure. It's a method called future basing. I know that's a weird name, but it's about basing yourself in the future. And one of the reasons why I kept the name is because I thought if it's that weird, people will probably remember it. Fundamentally, it's about thinking about the kind of future you want to have and basing yourself on a day when you have everything that you want. So you imagine it's the future already. You pick a specific day and date. And then you say, look, what am I successful at? And you come up with a series of categories or areas of success. So it might be financial well-being, it might be health, it might be business or product development, those kinds of headings. And then in each of those categories, you list a specific set of achievements that you've made, which tell you this is what I mean by success in detail. You end up with a word picture of this ideal future. And this has a very interesting effect on your nervous system, which I'll explain a little bit more later on. So it's a way of creating a word picture or a description of your ideal vision of the future. And that could be a future which is hours away, it could be 20 years away. It really doesn't matter. So that's fundamentally the simple description of it. And when you've got this description of the future, you can take each of those specific achievements you described and pretend to remember back what must we have done to get here. So you can actually create an operational plan from this vision as well. And certainly for people in organisations and businesses, that's a very useful step. So you create kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I work with a lot of startups and established businesses, and one of the common problems they seem to have or they express is they don't know how to develop their vision, whether that's an individual or as a corporate team. Sometimes they're looking to build that 10-year plan or mission, and it can cause a lot of probably discussion. And I know you've got two stories on two clients you work with over the years, one being the Red Cross. Would you mind just sharing that with us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how you utilise future basing in that?
Certainly. Well, there were two steps to that process. I was actually doing a 10-year visioning exercise with the Secretary General of the Red Cross and 50 of these top people from around the world, from all different countries, creating a vision of the worldwide Red Cross movement for the year 2010. This was in 1997. So we were creating a vision for 13 years ahead. With 50 people in the room, that was my biggest challenge at that time with the method. On the back of that, I was asked to work with an advisory commission, which had been meeting every year for 15 years, attempting to create an internal agreement between two parts of the Red Cross. And this agreement was about who's in charge when there's a war in a particular country or countries, and there's a natural disaster like a flood or an earthquake or something like that. Who's in charge? Who's running the show? And this group had been meeting every year for 15 years, trying to work out a formal protocol for that, and failing to do it because of politics and differences of opinion. And with future basing, we spent a night and a day in that time using the method. They actually designed their protocol. The nice thing about it was they were shocked when they met to write up what they'd done, because they didn't realise they already had it written. And that was approved in Seville at their General Assembly that year. So it's now called the Seville Agreement, and it's one of the most important kind of procedures in the entire Red Cross movement. So I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
I'd say you are, mate. And just to probably put the insight I hear that is for 15 years or thereabouts, there was a lot of conflict, discussion, and no action or outcome, no agreement. And basically in a day and a night, it went into one package that was able to be seen, communicated, understood, and now it's probably one of the most important agreements within the Red Cross.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I set the group the challenge, and I said simply, look, imagine it's a year's time. It's a year's. So they picked a date 1 year ahead, and I said, imagine this protocol has been working for several months now, and you're delighted with it. What's so good about it? And that's how they started to structure their discussion, with coming up with areas which would have to be satisfied in order for it to be suitable. So what they didn't realise was they were designing the structure of it by doing that. Actually, that step of saying what are you successful at and coming up with a series of headings or categories is a really important one, because if you're coming up with words that describe what you really want, then in fact it's automatically adjusted to your values. So you're forming a kind of frame of your real core values by creating those categories. And I think that's what gives it part of its power.
Well, very good. And also, from obviously knowing you and using the technique myself with your assistance, from my inside, the way I process when you've done it with me is every doubt or every sort of probably internal obstacle you have seems to just disappear, because you're thinking the outcome and you're not thinking through the obstacles. So with that in mind, how would that help, say, a startup or somebody that's in business that, because in my personal opinion, working with business clients, is that many start with an idea or a concept and they confuse that with a vision. Could you clarify what the difference is between an idea, a vision?
Yeah, I suppose you could say having the idea is, look, there's this great product that I've got an idea for and I think it could serve people really well. A vision would be living in a business that produces that product and sells it and is a very successful business. That's the difference between an idea and a vision. If you can imagine being at the foot of a flight of stairs, and for you the idea of success would be being up there at the top of this flight of stairs. One of the interesting things metaphorically is when you look up a flight of stairs, what you see of the staircase is all the rises. And if you like, they represent obstacles. You've got to get up that to get onto the next step, so to speak. Those are all. So we very often plan getting up the stairs from the present moment, saying, well, I've got to get up the first step, and then I've got to get up the second, and so on. an interesting thing happens. If you go and stand at the top of the stairs and look down and say, when I was down there, I was wishing I could be up here. Now I'm up here, I'm where I want to be. When you look down the flight of stairs, you can't see those obstacles or those risers. All you can see is all of the platforms that you arrived at. And future basing uses this way of thinking, as if you're at the top of the stairs, you've already got what you want, and you look back and say, look, I'm here, and I must have done that to get here. I'll give you one example if this is useful. I was working with a group of engineers in an engineering company that made landing gear for aircraft. And there's one man saying, it's 3 years' time, and me and my family, we live in Australia. We're very happy to be here in Australia, described their life there and so on. And then when we got to this remembering back part, he said, now, Bill, this is where your technique falls down. And I said, how do you mean? He said, well, to live in Australia, we have to buy visas. And there's my wife and 3 children, there's 5 of us, and it's £4,000 for each visa. That's £20,000. I haven't got £20,000. So I said, so what's your problem? He said, well, how am I going to get the visas? So I said, well, if you think like that, you won't be in Australia, will you? Now listen, if you live in Australia, you must have got the visas, right? So he said, yeah. So I said, well, all that you write down when you remember back what you must have done to get here was, we got the visas. Right now, you don't need to know how you got them, but since you live in Australia, you must have. So you simply write, we got the visas. That's all. And then you write down when that was. So that's the way this technique works. You're at the top of the stairs looking down, saying, yeah, we must have stood on that step to be up here.
And with that in mind, obviously, that sort of gives us an insight or an understanding or a vision of what it's about. Why, in your opinion, does it work? Because logically, all our futures are in our head anyway, yeah? But the challenge people seem to have would be they're in thought process, thinking through what they want, and thought process is reason, and then they come up with reasons why they can't do it. Yeah, your technique, obviously, I think, from what you said, a lot of people see it's more a visionary base rather than a thought base. But internally, why is it so powerful?
Well, there's one interesting thing about it is you only talk about the future. See, many people, when they're planning ahead and they want something to happen, they start thinking about, well, first I'm going to have to get the money, then I'm going to have to do this, then I'm going to have to do that. It's almost like they're taking it through step by step. Future basing ignores all of that and goes directly to the end result, and you describe the future first without any thought of how you're going to get there. One of the interesting effects it has on your unconscious part of your mind is because you describe it in the present tense and you use present tense language, it fools your unconscious into thinking it's real. And what happens then is, even if you do nothing more about it, you just created this vision, wrote it down and forgot, there's a strange thing that the unconscious does. It starts noticing opportunities to get a step closer. And you end up doing things, taking chances, taking opportunities, trying things out, just because at the time they seem like a good idea. It's only when a couple of years later you look back and you think, oh, that's strange. Everything I wrote down is now real. And I don't know how I made that. And we discovered that very early in the process. It was, in fact, it was the stunning discovery that made me think there was something a bit special about this way of thinking. So the unconscious organizes itself to get you what you want. It's a bit like the law of attraction on steroids, if you like.
Very good. And just in summary, obviously on the night we're doing, I know you're doing a talk on it and probably a bit of an interactive exercise, so it's more showing, not telling. And obviously we're looking to transfer insight rather than, it's not a lecture. But then we're going to be doing a panel discussion. What questions, to prepare the people in the room, what questions should they be thinking about now to enable them? How could they organise their thinking so when they're in the room on the night, they're prepared so they can get the most from it?
Well, I think if they've had some of the difficulties that you mentioned of thinking about the future in a way that is engaging and motivating for them, they might have questions about, so how does it work? How do you think about the future? How can you do planning? writing down plans just is writing down plans, but until you actually carry them out, you don't know if they're going to work or not. How can you do it knowing that it's going to work? Those might be the kinds of questions that people might want to ask. Yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure to have you on, Bill, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing you on the night. I know you and we have some great chats and we have some good get-togethers, so I have the privilege of your company. And basically, I spent days with you in a room, so I know that they're really in for a good night, and it's just a shame that we've got certain time limits, and we've got 4 hours in total. And I know you and I are both working between now and then to get it down into a process where they get the most from it. How can people contact you in the meantime if they want to sort of email you or what's your website?
Yeah, well, I have an email address which is bill@bittnerphillips.com. Bittner Phillips is spelled BITNER and then Phillips with 2 L's.com. And my website is bittnerphillips.com.
And you specialise in, Bill? What do you specialise in?
Training, coaching, mostly these days. I do more coaching than anything else. Executive coaching, personal coaching, performance coaching.
Okay, buddy. And what I'll do is I'll probably be talking to you over the weekend or Monday, and I'm very much looking forward to us working together. And thanks very much for your time, sir. And I'm really looking forward to the night. Take care, my friend. Have a good day.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Lee. Bye-bye.